Double the quota. No bonus unless you meet it, or you may leave now. The department head suddenly blurted out this outrageous statement. I couldn't stay silent about this. That's way too tyrannical. We're barely catching up with the existing quota. Doubling it is impossible. It's just not realistic. As I stood up and protested, the department head turned to face me with the most disgusting expression I'd ever seen. You can't do it because you've conditioned yourself to believe it's impossible before even trying. That's the main reason this department can't get back on its feet right now. I heard something snap inside my head. No way I'm gonna let this department be ruined any further. After that, I called 3 of my subordinates to the break room. When I told them I wanted their help to teach the department head a lesson, their eyes lit up. Now, it's time for our comeback story to begin. I'm Bob Thompson, 42 years old. I'm a section chief in the sales department of a food company. A lot has happened in this company over the past few years. First, we can't forget about the pandemic that threw the whole world into panic. Initially, we are the wholesaler mainly dealing with the restaurants and hotels, and we didn't have many originally developed products. During the height of the pandemic, as an infection control measure, many of our clients were forced to suspend their operations, which significantly dropped our sales. At one point, this company was also driven to the brink of bankruptcy. In the midst of such a crisis, a frozen meal set conceptualized as restaurant tastes at home was developed. The company's fate depended on the sales performance of this product. This was a big hit, matching the stay-at-home demand, and we somehow managed to hang on. After that, the company invested in the development department and succeeded in creating new products one after another. Eventually, the stock price plummeted back to its previous level. But that didn't last long. A few months ago, a scandal about falsifying raw materials came to light. The sales department of this company is divided into sections by product line. The investigation revealed that employees, section chiefs, and a department head from various product lines had conspired to commit fraud. Naturally, the credibility of the entire company plummeted. Many of our business partners notified us of contract cancellations or reductions. And now, we sales representatives continue to face harsh words from our clients every time we go on sales calls or negotiations. Cold calling to acquire new customers is nothing short of hell now. The reason employees haven't quit the company yet is largely due to the character of our CEO, Ken Wilson. Right after the scandal broke, the CEO himself visited this branch and called an emergency general meeting. The CEO assured that he would take this matter extremely seriously and apologized us, saying, "I understand that this news may be unsettling and disappointing. Please know that we are committed to rectifying the situation and ensuring that such actions do not happen again." Even though the CEO himself must have been swamped with explaining the situation, I heard he did the same at other branches too. Many employees were deeply moved by his sincere personality. Following this incident, the employees, section chief, and department head involved in the scandal were dismissed. The sales department was temporarily left without a department head. After a while, a person named Nick Foster was dispatched from the head office and appointed as the new sales department head. With this development, I thought I could finally relieve myself of the burden as an acting department head, but things didn't go in the right direction. This new department head turned out to be quite a character. The first day the new sales department head took office. "I'm Section Chief Bob Thompson. It's a pleasure to meet you." But the department head looked at me skeptically with his arms crossed. And before returning my greeting, he asked me this: "Hey, what's your educational background?" "Excuse me? I mean, what's your highest level of education? Which college did you graduate from?" "Well, I don't have a college degree. I'm a high school graduate." When I answered that, Nick snorted and looked down on me. Figures the branch is low level. Having a high school grad as section chief is a joke. No wonder they had a scandal. I see. By the way, I graduated from a university that everyone's heard of. Just so you know, Nick was a complete educational elitist. I don't know about the head office, but high school grads are a dime a dozen at this branch. So I've never been put down for my education since joining the company. I never thought I'd hear something like this at this company now. After that, the department head said, "Hey, look over here," while clapping his hands to get everyone's attention in the office. Then he showed off his arrogance without hesitation. "First off, let me tell you all this. I've been sent to this office to clean up and fix all the mess of this branch. So from now on, you will unconditionally obey my orders. I won't accept any objections." The office fell silent at Nick's words. Nick continued his tirade. Apparently, this high school graduate section chief was checking project proposals as an acting department head. Well, bear in mind that I was in the corporate planning department at HQ. That means I'm a pro at managing numbers and creating documents. From now on, I'll be whipping you all into shape. And so, Nick planted the worst first impression on all the sales department employees. By the way, when I looked into Nick's alma mater, it was indeed a famous school in the local area, but on a national scale, it was just a so-so private university. From this day on, the atmosphere in the sales department started to deteriorate day by day. First, as he declared, Nick began instructing on how to create project proposals. But because of this, the employees who had been working overtime since the scandal broke were forced to work even longer hours. Moreover, when I asked a subordinate who was ordered to redo a proposal, he said he was nitpicked about trivial things like not enough line breaks or the colors in tables and graphs being too dull. We don't have time for this kind of thing right now. Above all, regaining the trust of our clients is urgent. Doesn't Nick understand this situation? I decided to talk directly to Nick, feeling sorry for my exhausted subordinates. "Sir, do you have a moment?" What is it?" "Right now, what matters most is repairing relationships with our clients. Fine-tuning proposals should be a lower priority. The employees are exhausted. Couldn't we focus more on practical work?" The department head coldly laughed at my words. "You might not understand, but creating presentable documents is an important job as well. Listen, you can't regain trust without paying attention to details. And you might not get this because you're a high school grad, but the visual appearance of proposals does matter. If you can't make them satisfactory, it's better not to do them at all." I couldn't help but tilt my head at his words. I don't quite understand his logic. Then, Nick seemed to be in a good mood and happily insulted me. "See? You don't get it, right? That's why low-educated folks should stay out of it. With all due respect, I have more experience in this department than you do, sir." I'm speaking based on that experience. I was pretty upset and tried to talk back, but Nick interrupted before I could finish. "You don't know your position. Right now, I'm practically the highest authority in this branch. Do as I say." This guy seems to be quite mistaken. The highest authority in this branch is undoubtedly the branch manager. It's just that the branch manager has been often absent, busy coordinating with HQ and external stakeholders in response to the scandal. He's probably just throwing his weight around, taking advantage of that. Realizing this, I found it pointless to continue talking to Nick and decided to go back to my desk and finish my own work. But this time, Nick came to my desk. "Hey, why are there so many advertising agencies among this department's clients? Dealing with ad agencies is just a waste of money. We need to increase new customers who'll actually buy our products." Nick looked through the client list and slammed it on my desk. Then he raised his voice, breathing heavily. I looked calmly into the department head's eyes and answered, "Of course, I understand we need to develop new customers, but dealing with advertising agencies isn't a waste. Especially in the food industry like our company, how effectively we advertise our products is very important." Isn't it more about whether we can make products that sell? That's a given. But I believe hit products are born from both that and effective promotional strategies. For example, the frozen food our company developed before was a big hit, not just because of product quality, but also due to effective promotional strategies. No, I'm talking about now. I'm saying we should strengthen direct sales activities now. I could see Nick was clearly getting irritated. I am talking about the present situation as well. Do you not think we need a strategy to promote our existing and new products while developing new customers? This is essential for improving our image. When I said that, Nick finally lost his temper. Don't get cocky. Who do you think you are? He yelled and kicked my desk hard. The office fell silent at Nick's behavior. It was déjà vu. How many times do I have to tell you? I said all you have to do is just follow my orders in this branch now. After saying that, Nick suddenly looked like he had thought of something. Oh, I see now. You are making excuses to hide how useless you are you not? No, that is not the case. No, that is exactly it. You are trying to change the subject because you cannot get any customers. I do not know what he has convinced himself of, but Nick's expression was getting more and more gleeful. Everyone, look here. Oh, you are all looking already. What is he going to say now? Everyone in the office was looking at Nick nervously. From now on, focus on getting new customers. Do more cold calls. The whole office froze at Nick's words. Everyone here except him knows how tough cold calling is right now. Oh yes, it is almost time to submit bonus evaluations to the CEO. Saying that, Nick looked around at the employees with a grin. Then he dropped a bombshell. Double the quota. No bonus unless you meet it, or you may leave now. I could not stay silent about this. That's way too tyrannical. We're barely catching up with the existing quota. Doubling it is impossible. It's just not realistic. As I stood up and protested, Nick turned to face me with the most disgusting expression I had ever seen. You can't do it because you've conditioned yourself to believe it's impossible before even trying. That's the main reason this department can't get back on its feet right now. I do not think that at all. Everyone in this department has been doing cold calls while getting stomach ulcers. The abuse we get from clients is that bad. Ha! Do you want to know why you are such a wimp? It is because you are a high school graduate. You entered society without building up enough endurance. What absurd logic. If that logic was correct, high school graduates should have more practical endurance since they entered society earlier. Anyway, does this man even know what it is like on the sales front lines? Well then, are you saying you could get as many new customers as you want, sir? When I asked that, Nick gave the answer I expected. What? I was a high performer at headquarters. Of course I have never done sales. That is work for low-level people. I do not know about headquarters, but in this sales department, it is normal for even the department head to do sales calls. I see. Now I understand why the previous department head caused a scandal. He was that level to begin with. No matter what I say, he twisted to suit himself. There is really no talking to this man. In the first place, the company is at fault for letting someone like this do bonus evaluations. As I sat down, having lost the will to speak, Nick said triumphantly, "Finally given up, have you? If you are going to talk back to me, at least show some results first." I heard something snap inside my head. There is no way I am going to let the sales department be ruined any further. After that, I called 3 of my subordinates to the break room. When I told them I wanted their help to teach Nick a lesson, their eyes lit up. I asked the 3 to secretly tell everyone in the sales department to stay in the office after the department head leaves, so we could discuss specifics. Though Nick leaves right at quitting time every day while everyone else works overtime, so they would probably stay without being told. As planned, the department head left right on time that day too. When I stood up, everyone in the office looked at me expectantly. Thank you for cooperating, everyone. I apologize for the sudden request, but I have come up with a grand plan. If we pull this off, even Nick should learn his lesson. Everyone's expression changed to a lively one that they had not shown for quite some time at my words. The decisive battle is tomorrow. The reason I rushed to execute this plan was because the CEO was scheduled to visit for an inspection the next day. From his previous behavior, I had somewhat guessed that Nick was probably the type to go along with authority. Just knowing that the CEO was coming, he had been restless since morning. His usual arrogant attitude was subdued. Seeing Nick like this made me even more excited to put the plan into action. I made eye contact with everyone except Nick. It was the signal to start. "Sir, I apologize for interrupting your busy schedule, but could I have a moment of your time? What? You know I am busy. The CEO is coming. Yes, I am aware. However, there is something I must discuss with you immediately. What is it now? Seeing the irritated department head made me increasingly amused. It is somewhat difficult to say, but what? Just say it quickly. We have canceled all ongoing business negotiations. What? Nick seemed not to understand the meaning of my words. Silently, I handed a file to Nick. The cover read, "Full report on business negotiation status." As he opened the file, his eyes widened visibly. What is the meaning of this? As I said, all business negotiations have been canceled. What? Do you understand what you are saying? Yes, it is as the documents show. The file contained negotiation unsuccessful documents. His face turned red as he shouted. Do not be ridiculous. Why has this happened? If you had followed my instructions, you should have succeeded. Is that so? It is because of your unreasonable instructions and excessive pressure. If you only impose unreasonable demands, everything eventually collapses. What are you saying so arrogantly? I do not understand. Well, I was intentionally being abstract, so he would not understand. Perhaps I should explain to the department head what the situation of all negotiations being canceled means. We canceled all negotiations because all employees in the sales department are resigning. Saying this, I took out my resignation letter from my pocket and handed it to Nick. Following me, other employees also started handing in their resignation letters one after another. What? No, wait, all of you. Nick refused to accept any of the resignation letters. I will leave them on your desk then. As I started collecting and organizing the resignation letters everyone had handed in, Nick grabbed me by the collar. Stop this nonsense. Are you trying to make a fool of me? I simply couldn't figure out how to achieve double the quota. Nobody wants to miss out on our bonuses. Besides, didn't you say we are free to go? Damn you. He started shouting abuse loudly. The words were so vulgar that if there were small children present, we would have had to cover their ears. At this moment, the person we had been waiting for appeared. Mr. Foster, do you understand what you are doing? Mr. CEO, it is going according to plan. I know that the CEO is very strict about time. The CEO had never been late for scheduled inspections before. I had timed the execution of our plan to coincide with the CEO's arrival. I heard some commotion as I was about to enter the office, so I listened from the hallway for a while. Mr. Foster, what you are doing clearly constitutes harassment. The CEO glared at the department head with sharp eyes. Nick, though pale-faced, seemed intent on self-preservation. With a forced laugh, he began an implausible excuse. Come now, Mr. CEO, that sounds terrible. Mr. Thompson just started joking, and I was merely playing along. Look, the entire department suddenly submitting resignation letters? It must be a joke. From what I heard, it did not sound like a joke. That cannot be true. It is a prank. Nick looked at me with eyes mixing anger, pleading, and indescribable emotions. Mr. CEO, as you probably understand, this is neither a joke nor a prank. If Nick remains, all of us in the sales department intend to resign immediately. I returned to my desk and handed the CEO a different file from the one I had given to Nick earlier. Its cover read, Report on Abuse of Authority by Sales Department Head Nick Foster. As the CEO opened the file, his expression grew even more severe. Nick's shoulders began to tremble visibly upon seeing the CEO's reaction. This document is based on my personal investigation. However, if you conduct a proper inquiry, you'll understand how many employees have suffered from his behavior. I see. We will establish an investigative committee to thoroughly examine this matter. You. Nick glared at me, on the verge of revealing his true nature. However, he seemed to remain deferential in front of authority figures. He did not spout his usual nonsensical arguments. I am taking this situation very seriously. Based on the statements in this document, it appears that employees resigned primarily due to Nick's demands and abuses of power. These included doubling the new customer acquisition quota, threatening to withhold bonuses for failure to meet it, and compelling resignations from those who disagreed with these conditions. Am I correct? Yes, that is correct. Since the scandal broke, we have been in an extremely difficult situation. It may be true that we have not produced good results. However, it is also true that everyone has been working overtime almost daily, dedicating themselves to the company. The CEO nodded deeply as I spoke. I understand. Every department is facing tough challenges, but the sales department is under particularly strong external pressure. Despite this, not a single employee has left the company until now. I have received comments from other department heads praising the enormous effort you guys all have put in to regain our trust. Hearing the CEO's words, I decided to muster the courage to make a request. Mr. CEO, I feel hesitant to ask for a favor given the company's difficult situation, but I really believe my subordinates could use a break. Could we possibly have just one day off? Yes. Let me see. The CEO began consulting with his accompanying secretary. It seemed he was checking if he could change his schedule. It's decided. All of you in the sales department, please take some time off for now. Mr. Foster, I'm ordering you to acquire at least 3 new customers by tomorrow. Show us what you can do. We will consider your future based on those results. The CEO made a bold decision. Nick was nearly in tears. What? I am to do sales? Yes, you are. Before making unreasonable demands of your subordinates, show them how it is done yourself. This is a fundamental principle of leadership. Fortunately, I can change my schedule for tomorrow as well. I will wait for your return in this office. This cannot be. And so, Nick was forced to do cold calls himself. The next day arrived. I was working in the office as usual. In the evening, the CEO appeared with his secretary. Oh, was it all right for you not to take a break, Mr. Thompson? Yes, I am fine. Rather than not needing a break, I wanted to work in the office without him. It seemed like work would progress more smoothly that way. I truly apologize for all the trouble. The scandal, the situation with Department Head Foster, it is all due to my lack of proper supervision. No, with a company this large, it is impossible for the CEO to bear all the responsibility alone. Please do not worry about it. The CEO chuckled and placed his hand on my shoulder. It has been a while since we last talked like this, Mr. Thompson. Indeed, it was really tough back then, but somehow we got through it. I am sure we will be fine this time too. I hope you are right. As the CEO and I were reminiscing, Nick returned from his sales calls. I have returned. Why is Thompson here? Although I had not seen him for just one day, Nick looked as if he had aged 3 years. The outcome of his sales rounds was evident from his expression. However, I needed to hear the results from him directly. How was the cold calling? I imagine you heard some harsh words? When I asked this, Nick fell completely silent. Come now, ignoring me is not appropriate, the CEO prompted. Finally, Nick opened his mouth, but his voice was barely audible. It was no good. Excuse me? I said, it was no good. I'm sorry, could you repeat that once more? At my request, Nick finally lost control, even in front of the CEO. Shut up. Why do I have to go through this? His outburst revealed everything. You must have been subjected to terrible words. Do you understand now? What you experienced yesterday and today is a daily occurrence for us in the sales department. My words seemed to irritate Nick even further. That's because you're an incompetent high school graduate. There are plenty of people who could replace you, but there's no one who can replace me. Is that so? The CEO stood up and slowly walked towards Nick. Nick, you seem unaware of how much Bob has contributed to our company. It's no exaggeration to say he's the person who saved our company from its greatest crisis. Mr. CEO, that's surely an overstatement, I protested. No, I'm that grateful to you, Bob. Nick's eyes widened in confusion as he listened to our conversation. When we were on the brink of bankruptcy due to the pandemic, it was Bob who came up with the innovative idea to use social media for promoting the newly developed frozen foods. Moreover, he made cold calls to numerous advertising agencies to make it happen. What? Is that why there are so many advertising agencies among our clients? At that time, Hardly any advertising agency was willing to work with our nearly bankrupt company. Still, Bob gritted his teeth and kept making sales calls. The success of that product was thanks to Bob's efforts. Many of our current advertising agency clients approached us after that product became a hit, right? Nick, now aware of my past, was at a loss for words, his mouth agape. Ignoring Nick, the CEO and I continued reminiscing about those times. Bob himself came up with many arrangement recipes for that product. Each one was delicious. It was all thanks to the high quality of the product itself. I enjoyed it too back then. I should have promoted Bob to department head right away. I could have done it with my authority. I'm sorry. Please don't worry about it. You promoted me to section chief, didn't you? The CEO seemed to feel a strong sense of obligation towards me. Just knowing that was enough to make me happy. By the way, Nick, regarding your harassment, the head office's investigation committee is currently looking into it. They've gathered quite a lot of testimonies in just one day. At my words, the CEO sighed deeply and folded his arms. It seems you treated your subordinates unfairly at the head office as well. I feel deceived. I thought you were a polite person, but it seems that was only towards those above you in position. By this time, Nick had completely lost his earlier bravado. However, it seemed he was still intent on making feeble excuses. That was, well, a kind of parental concern to guide my subordinates in the right direction. My words might have been a bit harsh, but, ignoring Nick's words, I delivered some unfortunate news to him. Regarding this matter, I've heard that upper management, as well as the CEO, are taking it very seriously and have decided that prompt action is necessary. As I said this, I looked at the CEO, who met my gaze directly and nodded several times. Well, that's how it is, Nick. You just said to Bob that there are plenty of people who could replace him. Nick, being addressed, was trembling just like yesterday. I'm afraid there are far more people who could replace you, Nick. At this point, the secretary handed a piece of paper to the CEO. The CEO took it and held it out to Nick. Nick, this is how things stand. The paper contained a notice of termination. Fired? You're firing me? If my parents find out about this, they'll beat me. To the pale-faced Nick, I offered one comment. Well, Mr. Foster, I'm sure you can work anywhere. After all, you graduated from a prestigious university, and so it was decided that Nick would leave the company that very day. I immediately informed all employees in the sales department about this. As a result, every single one of them withdrew their resignation letters. By the way, the claim about canceling all business negotiations was, of course, a lie. It was a scenario we created to make the situation of the entire department resigning more convincing. The CEO did reprimand me, saying, I wish you had consulted with me first, but ultimately understood that the sales department had been driven to such extremes. After a detailed investigation into Nick's harassment, it was decided that Nick would be required to pay compensation for emotional distress to all affected employees. I don't know the specific amount, but it's certainly substantial. Moreover, negative rumors about Nick have somehow spread, and it's unlikely he'll ever be hired in the same industry again. I've heard rumors that Nick is currently juggling several part-time jobs to make ends meet, but whether that's true or not is none of my business. After Nick's dismissal, upon the CEO's recommendation, I would be appointed as the sales department head. Above all, my actions and words showing consideration for my subordinates were highly valued. While I'm grateful for such praise, I believe caring for one's subordinates is only natural. However, perhaps it's this kind of mindset that contributes most to a company's growth. Now, my subordinates' motivation has increased, and our previously stagnant performance is recovering. Additionally, the development department has created a promising new product that I have a positive feeling will be a big hit. This company still has a lot of potential. I consider myself fortunate to work for a company that makes me feel this way.